أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عن ابن مسعود رضي الله عنه قال صليت مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ليلة فأطال القيام حتى هممت بأمر سوء قيل وما هممت به قال هممت أن أجلس وأدعه متفق عليه. Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu said, one night I joined the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his optional salah. He prolonged the standing so much that I thought of doing something evil. He was asked, what did you intend to do? He replied, to sit down and leave him. عن أنس رضي الله عنه عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال يتبع الميت ثلاثة أهله وماله وعمله فيرجع اثنان ويبقى واحد يرجع أهله وماله ويبقى عمله متفق عليه. Anas radiyallahu anhu reported, Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, 3 follow a dead body, members of his family, his possessions, and his deeds. 2 of them return and 1 remains with him. His family and his possessions return, his deeds remain with him. عن ابن مسعود رضي الله عنه قال قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الجنة أقرب إلى أحدكم من شراك نعله والنار مثل ذلك. Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu reported, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Jannah is nearer to any one of you than your shoelace, and so is the hellfire.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala Rasulil Kareem. Amma ba'd. We are still in chapter 11, the chapter of struggling in the cause of Allah. This is hadith, or these are hadith 103, 104, and 105. The first one is hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, in which he says that once the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was praying, so I joined him in the optional prayer. Meaning the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was making qiyam. And so Ibn Mas'ud decided to also join him in that. Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu was considered so close to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that people thought he was part of the family or a member of the family. So, and it is authentically narrated to us that there were a few Sahaba who would find the Prophet ﷺ to be praying at night and they would join him. And I think last week we mentioned one of them was Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman, the secret holder or the person who used to keep the secrets of the Prophet ﷺ, especially with regards to the names and the identification of the hypocrites of Medina. And we mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ, he stood with the Prophet of Allah in the first rak'ah. He recited 100 verses, and Hudhayfah, he thought, okay, now he's going to go to ruku'. He said, okay, he finished 200, he thought he's going to go. He said, no, he didn't go, he continued. So he said, okay, maybe after he finishes Surah Al-Baqarah, and he will go to ruku'. No, he finished Surah Al-Baqarah, he didn't. He started Surah An-Nisa. He finished that, he said, okay, after that he's going to go to ruku'. He didn't. He started Ali Imran, and then he went to ruku'. This tells us that when it comes to optional prayers, whether it's Qiyamul Layl, Tahajjud, Taraweeh, that it is, it could be prolonged for as long as the Imam wants. Why? Because it's optional. It can be prolonged as long as the Imam wants, or as long as the most strongest from amongst the congregants can handle. Meaning if there is at least 1 or 2 that can handle such a long, then it's okay. But when it comes to fard salah, it should be according to the weakest amongst them. Does that make sense? It should be according to the weakest amongst them. Meaning if the weakest can only handle one page, then that's good. If the weakest can only handle surahs like Wattini wa Zaytun or Suratul Qadr, then that is what the Imam needs to recite. But when it comes to Taraweeh, when it comes to Tahajjud, they're not bound to pray in Jama'ah, and so the Imam is not bound for that. Also, the Prophet ﷺ, he used to converse with Allah in his tahajjud prayers. Meaning, when he used to come to a verse of speaking about Jannah, he used to ask Allah, "Oh Allah, give me Jannah." He used to glorify Allah and ask Allah, "Oh Allah, give me Jannah." And if he came to verses of Jahannam, he used to say, "Oh Allah, protect me from the fire of hell." So my question is to all of you, is this permissible? Yeah, is this permissible in the fard salah? That's my question. Can we do this in the fard salah? So for example, if the imam he comes upon verses that talks about the punishment of Allah, it talks about Jahannam, can we be conversing with Allah like this? Huh? You do it secretly? Yeah. So according to the majority of the scholars, no. According to the majority of the scholars, you don't. According to the Malikis, according to the Hanbalis, and according to the Hanafis, you don't. According to the Shafi'is, they say because it's reported that the Prophet ﷺ used to do it, then we can do it. But according to the majority of the scholars, no. Why? Because it is only proven that the Prophet ﷺ used to do this in his nafil salah. So for example, if the Imam says, أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِأَحْكَمِ الْحَاكِمِينَ, in the end of Surah Teen, is Allah not the best of the decision makers or the judges? Now, it is not reported that the Prophet ﷺ used to say Bala wa ana ala dhalika min ash-shahidin, except that it was in the nafil prayers. But the Shafi'is, they say no, whether nafil prayers or whether the fard prayers, you can do it in both. And so, and Allah knows best. To be on the safe side and to safeguard our fard salah, we should not converse with Allah when we come upon these verses. Allah knows best. This is what I lean towards. And if you are taking the opinion of the Shafi'i school because you are a follower of the Shafi'i madhab, then that is up to you, and you do have a very strong basis for it as well. Also, when it comes to the sunnah of making qiyamul layl, what is preferred? Standing, prolonging the standing, or prolonging the sajda? No, the standing. Standing is more sunnah, to prolong that. Anything else after the standing is less. So the ruku', the sujood is less than that. Is less than the standing. But when it comes to all other salah, of course sajda is something that a person, he's very close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if he prolongs it compared to his standing, then that is okay. The second hadith is of Anas radiallahu anhu, in which he said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, 3 people follow the dead, members of his family, his possession, meaning his wealth, and his good deeds, or rather his deeds. 2 of them return and 1 remains with him. His family and his possessions return and his deeds remain with him. How surprising is it that the people that we love the most and the people that love us the most are actually the people that will be directing our funerals. How sad or how surprising it is that the people that wants to be in our company every single day, like our parents, like our children. But when we die, no matter how much you pay them, they don't want to keep your body. They say, get rid of it. Get rid of it because it's going to start to rot. Get rid of it because it's going to start to stink. Get rid of it because of diseases may come. And so here in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is saying that the wealth, the family and the wealth are going to, and the deeds are going to accompany a person. They're going to follow him all the way until they put him in the grave, and then they will come. The wealth will go ahead and pay for his grave, for the transportation, for all of the expenses. So it doesn't make it all the way. The family is the one who will go ahead and do the calling and pay and everything, and then even carry the body, wash the body, shroud the body, pray over the body, and then take it all the way to the graveyard. But then, no matter how beloved a person is to that individual, no one wants to go ahead and be buried with the dead. And so this hadith is telling us, so which one do we take care of? Do we take care of, do we watch over our wealth and our family, or do we watch over our good deeds? In other words, if there's a conflict between doing a good deed and your family, which one takes precedence? So for example, if you must go for Hajj, but your family is opposed to it. Or if you want to go ahead and get married, if you are a man, of course, and not a woman, because a woman needs the consent of her wali. If you're a man and you want to get married because you fear of zina, and which will affect your good deed, remember this is deeds, so both the good and the bad. But your wealth, you're thinking about your wealth, oh, I don't have enough. Or what if that means I have to pull out money for my investment, or it means I have to tap into my savings, or my family is against this, or they don't agree with me getting married before the age 25, an arbitrary number. Which one do you take care of? Because it has an effect on your deeds, whether good or bad. You do the ri'ayah of, you safeguard your deeds, because they are the ones who's going to ultimately come with you in the grave. Your family is going to leave you. Your wealth is going to leave you. None of that is going to matter. And who comes to this realization the most? The people who have reached a certain age of intellect and wisdom, and usually that is accompanied with old age. There was a study that was done in the nursing home, a huge study. It was published in a peer-reviewed journal, and they asked various questions, but the number one agreement by everyone was what? The number one regret that they had, everyone in the nursing home, so we can imagine they are 70 plus. The number one regret is, I listened to people, and I took into consideration what they were going to think about me if I did something. For example, you are getting married. Your parents, your family members, your cousins, your in-laws, they want a certain type of marriage in a certain type of a restaurant, hotel, in a certain type of a wedding hall, and you and your soon-to-be wife wants to have a very simple wedding. You want to have it in the masjid so you can have barakah and some income can come to the masjid, and so the people are the people of salah and they will be making dua for you. Just like on Saturday, wallahi, one of the best weddings we had. Does everyone agree? One of the best weddings. We prayed. Yeah, mashallah. I can hear myself. So, you pray salah, there's the ukhuwa, there's mahabba. And that night was over. And there was other people also on Saturday night, they got married. The night was over on us and the night was over on them. How was the night over on us? In the obedience of Allah, inshaAllah. We worshipped Allah on time. We ate in tranquility, in peace. There wasn't any earthquake in the building. There wasn't any ikhtilat. There wasn't any free mixing amongst the genders. We benefited from some verses in a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. This is a dilemma, my dear uncles and my dear fathers, that all of the youth are going through. And that is, nowadays the youth are becoming more and more religious, and they're coming to the religion, and they want to let go of the culture that they had, in which in the village or in the city or in the place, in the community, people are going to talk bad about you for the rest of your life. If the food was too spicy, or if the food was too dull, or if the food was too little. We are not in that society anymore. People don't want to spend $30,000, $50,000 in one night. They want to keep that money as a down payment for a house that they want to buy through an Islamic bank. They want to go ahead and go to Hajj as their honeymoon, or Umrah as their honeymoon. And so now their parents are forcing them to go ahead and do a wedding for 700 people to 1,000, feed people that they will never really hear from them, and so on. So here the Prophet ﷺ, the next time you want to go ahead and please the people, whether it's your family or your friends, at the expense of your good deeds, at the expense of the obedience towards Allah, remember, they're going to leave you when you die. And only your deeds are going to remain with you. And so we must strive to maintain that one companion who is going to be with us in our grave. And the last hadith is the hadith also of Ibn Mas'ud, in which the Prophet ﷺ said, Jannah is nearer to one of you, even closer than the shoelace. Shoelace. You see, the shoelace is so close to you. This is by way of giving an example. The shoelace is very close to you. Your clothes, your undergarments are so close to you. What the Prophet ﷺ is actually saying, that Jannah, it is actually so easy that you may get Jannah. And it is also so easy to get Jahannam too. Because at the end he says, and so is the hellfire. What this means is sometimes we may say something which is so pleasing to Allah and you don't think much of it. Allah said, this person, I give him Jannah. Or you may do something which is so pleasing to Allah, Allah gives you Jannah. For example, we know the story of that prostitute woman who did something which she didn't even think as a big deal. It was so pleasing to Allah. The water that she gave to a thirsty dog. It was so pleasing to Allah. Allah forgave her and gave her Jannah. And there are people who prayed tahajjud and fasted every day but they starved a cat. And because of that starvation, it led to its death. And they didn't think much of it. And so Allah casted her into the hellfire. So what this means is doing good deeds sometimes is in front of you that will take you to Jannah. That's what it means. Does that make sense, brothers? Sometimes the good deeds are right there in front of you, such as speaking good, smiling. Imagine you say something good with someone who's going through some mental anguish, some problems in their house, and you say something good that brings happiness into his heart, and it changes his lifestyle because of one good thing. Just for example, don't worry, Allah will take care of you. And this just changes everything in a person's heart. And then he turns his life around, and his whole generations for 10 more generations to come are righteous because of one thing you said. Or for example, someone is coming to the masjid, you've never seen him, and you say, welcome brother, mashallah, so good to see you. And mashallah, that person, for lifetime he's coming to a masjid. Because of you, he became one of the worshippers of Allah. Allah gives you Jannah. Or you could say something, you don't think much. Allah is not going to forgive that person. What do you mean Allah is not going to forgive that person? Allah will call you on a day of judgment. Who were you to say, I'm not going to forgive that person? I have forgiven him, and I have annulled all of your good deeds. Enter into the hellfire. This is what it means that good deeds, or this is what it means that Jannah is closer to you than your shoelaces. It means that good deeds are so close to you that sometimes you don't even think about it, but it will take you to Jannah. And same thing with bad deeds. Because hellfire is so close to you, you may say something, you may joke. Look at that person's beard. Look at the sister's hijab. Jahannam. Wal-'iyadu billah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from amongst His worshippers with sincerity. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us Jannah through His mercy. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and our family members from the hellfire and from the punishment of the grave and from the punishment of the day of judgment and from the torment of the day of judgment and from the evil of that day, and give us shade on a day in which there's no shade except His shade. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us and forgive our family members, forgive our parents, forgive our relatives, and forgive all of the Muslims that have passed away upon the Tawheed until the day of judgment. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.